Welcome. Let's start with a quick warm-up, everybody. Go ahead and put your hands like this. Yes, you go ahead. I know you're at home all by yourself. Even if your camera is off, you can still do this. So go ahead, go like this. Very good. Now cross your arms and put your thumbs down and interlace your fingers just like this. Wonderful. Yes, everybody go like this. Make sure your hands are not down. They have to be up here. Yes, go like this with your pinkies. Go like this with your thumbs. Wonderful. Eye level. And now go ahead and turn them over so your thumbs are face up. I see you got stuck over there. Go ahead, put it in the comment how if you got stuck or not. I would love to know. Well, welcome to my talk. My name is Alan Chamo, and I'm really happy to be here. Now, I would love to, before we start, actually, let's do some magic. This is what I do. I'm a mentalist. A mentalist is like a magician with some mental issues. So let's do something interactive. For those of you, by the way, I hope that you had a chance to come to see me live on doing my show. And if you did, let me know. Maybe you can give me a thumbs up. I understand it goes up through the screen, which is pretty cool. And again, thank you for joining me. So let's do some interactive magic now. And I actually love this because I can use Ecamm to do magic. So check this out. You see here on the screen, we have a lot of billiard balls. I want you to go ahead and put your finger in one of them. Any of the balls that you like. All right? Yes, you have a lot to choose from, so just put your finger on one. Wonderful. Now I want you to go ahead and look for the closest, or look for an 8 ball. Yeah, a black 8 ball, like the closest one you have to where you at. And now move your finger to that one. You got it? Perfect. Now you and the other you, each one might be on a different black 8 ball. Yeah. Now I want you to go ahead and now look for a green ball. Yeah, a green it's number 6. Yeah, a green number 6 ball. The nearest one to where you're at right now, and go ahead and move your finger to that one. Okay, make sure it's the closest one to the black ball where you were just a moment ago. Perfect. So now you are on a black 8 ball. Now I know some of you don't like maybe the 8 ball, because if you hit that one, you get penalized, and if you put it inside the hole, then you lose the game, and we don't want to lose the game. So you know what? Look for a yellow. Yes, a yellow number 1, because that's what you are. You're number 1. Look for the nearest yellow number 1 ball, and now move your finger to that one. Yes. So right now, all of you should be on one of the number 1 yellow balls. Yes. Now, if I'm not mistaken, your finger is exactly on this one over here. Let's see. Yes! That one, I got it right. If I did, please let me know. Put it in the chat. I would love to know. All right, that was fun. That was fun. Now we can start the talk. Let's get this doing. Let's get this going. I'm sorry. So let me introduce myself again. My name is Alan. I'm an entertainer. So let me go a little bit about my history. But before that, I would love to let you know who is this talk for. So if you are an entertainer, a speaker, somebody that normally used to present in front of people in person, and now you are doing it virtually, or trying to do it virtually through a camera, this would be perfect for you, because I'm sure that you will be able to relate to my story, my difficulties, what I'm doing right now, and maybe even learn a little bit from my mistakes or what I'm doing right. So I'm really happy that you're here. And if you never been on stage and you just do presentations virtually, I think that you might get a few nuggets here that would be interesting, because I come from a different world. I'm not a streamer. I don't consider myself a streamer. Maybe now I'm a streamer by default. So I'm not an expert on anything that is related to a studio or streaming equipment. Everything I learned by myself in the past 18 months. So hopefully you get some value out of this. All right. So let's start with a little bit of where I come from, a little bit about myself. So first of all, maybe you noticed an accent. I used to have an accent. Okay, I still have an accent. So can you guess where is my accent from? All right, so put it in the chat. I would love to know. And the first one that gets it right gets a free Ecamm subscription on the free level. That's the only thing I can offer you. I don't get any perks from Ecamm, unfortunately. That's what it is. So, but please try and see. Put it in the chat. Actually, I'll give you a clue. It's more than one country. I lived in 2 different countries. I lived in 2 different continents. So here are 2 clues. So let's see who gets any of them right. All right. All right, so while you put it in the chat, let me tell you a little bit about me. So I started, as mentioned, as an entertainer. Since I'm 12, I'm performing on different type of stages. I started doing birthday parties as a magician. I'm not going to go that far back, but let's go back to 2000, prior to 2020. So I used to perform on stages like this, and my show is very interactive, a lot of audience participation. So everything I do was with the audience, was handing them physically things. There was touching, I mean, not in the way you're thinking, but I also combine hypnosis in my show. So there were some hypnotic suggestions and things like that. And as you can see, the audience is very active during my show. So that's the stages I've been performing on. I also done a lot of TV, mostly on networks, on Spanish networks like Univision. I've done big award ceremonies like it's called Premio Nuestro, which is like the Latin Grammys, live in front of 50 million people. So I had some experience on the TV part, but not me doing it by myself. Always it was a cameraman and tech people. So also when I was on stage, on these big stages, as you can imagine, it was only me on stage, but there was somebody, it was a sound man, a light technician normally, maybe some people backstage assisting. So it was a little bit more elaborated than only me. And most of the shows, my main clients were not so much corporate, but mostly the cruise lines. So I used to perform on the biggest cruises around the world. Some of them were huge, some were, I mean, the smallest one was for about 1,200 passengers. The biggest was 5,000 passengers. So it was pretty big stages, and I was comfortable. As a fly-on entertainer, I actually got to really enjoy the cruise. I would perform only one night per week, only 2 shows in the main stage, and the rest of the time I was like, yeah, visiting the world, just touring, having a lot of free time. So I've been doing this since 2006 up until 2020, and I was very, very comfortable, which also is kind of makes you a little lazy, I would say. But it was super, super fun. But then I got married and family, so I have a daughter, They came into the picture, and I needed to get off the cruise lines because I couldn't be all the time traveling. Just so you have an idea, in 2019, I did about 25 weeks outside of the country or on a cruise. So that's a lot. And in between, I was also doing, when I was on land, I was doing some private or corporate gigs, but I wanted to go into the corporate world mostly. So I started doing some land gigs, but not enough. And it was really hard to shift from the comfort of the cruises to land. It was hard not because of the comfort, but it was hard because when you're not on land for so long or so many years, people forget about you. You have to be in front of people, you have to network, you have to be in front of agents that can book you. So any entertainer that is listening to this or speaker, I think will understand what I'm talking about. And what really made me get out of the cruises, the transition was COVID. COVID kicked me out of the cruises. So my last cruise, I disembarked. It was March 9 in Honolulu. That was my last cruise. I was supposed to go on another one after that, but thankfully they canceled it because of COVID, obviously, because back then the rule was you need 14 days to jump between one cruise to the other, and there was no 14 days in between, so they canceled my contract. And I was so lucky they canceled my contract because that specific cruise was all the way in the south tip of South America, and it started going up to Chile and they didn't let them in, and then to Peru and they didn't let them in, and they were stranding at sea, and then they got to Fort Lauderdale and it was in the news that cruise was like 2 months stuck, and even Florida they wouldn't let them in. It was a whole mess. So I'm lucky that they canceled that cruise for me. um, and also when I suddenly all my gigs were canceled, not only the cruise but also the gigs I had on land, which I started booking more and more because I started connecting with more event planners, and everything was canceled, and it was a lot of money that was canceled for me, uh, and I was like I wouldn't say freaking out, but I was afraid. I mean, it wasn't easy. I mean, suddenly you're a magician, an entertainer that depends on live shows in person. And my shows were pretty. I mean, normally it was a lot of people in the theater. Anywhere between 300 to 1,500. So all that was gone, didn't exist. So what's up now? I mean, what am I doing? Am I doing Uber? I mean, I don't know really how to do anything else. I've been doing this all my life. So it was frightening a little bit. And then a few weeks later, my wife comes to me. We have a 5-year-old daughter. Well, a year ago she was 4. Uh, so she comes to me. She tells me, "Hey, I have great news! I have great news!" And she shows me a pregnancy stick. It's like, "I'm pregnant!" And I'm like, "Yay!" And inside, I mean, can you imagine? No work, no job, and trying to figure it out. And now a baby. I was freaking out. I was freaking out inside out. I mean, I had no other choice. I had to figure it out. I mean, there was no other option but figuring it out. So immediately, I mean, one of the good things that I did is that I immediately stepped into action, realizing that people need entertainment. It doesn't matter during what time in history, even during the most difficult wars, people need to be entertained. They need to have some kind of a connection, engage with each other. They need to have a little escape, a little fun escape, regardless of what's happening with the economy or what's happening with the pandemic. So I really had to figure this out. And immediately I went to my social media. I mean, the first thing is like, okay, how can I engage with people if nobody can be in a room together? I mean, when this started, I mean, everything was shut down. There's no flights. There's nothing. There's no. I cannot call anybody and it's like, hey, come. Or nobody could book me even for a little small event. So I realized that people would be entertained through the screen. And then I started understanding, okay, what are the tools available? So it's, TV, which it's going to be really hard for me to, I mean, people have Netflix, I mean, there are a lot of famous entertainers out there, and I'm not going to start becoming famous immediately. So that's a big curve. So then I realized, okay, so there are video platforms like Zoom, which, by the way, before that, I was maybe on Zoom, I can count it with one hand, okay? So I realized, okay, Zoom, I can see the people, they can see and hear me, and I can hear them as well. So that's a way that we can interact. All right, Zoom can be a way. Now, how do I translate my magic in a way that will work on the screen? Think about it. I use props normally, and I hand out the props so people can either examine or they can write something or do something. But now I cannot do that. I mean, the last time I checked, I think Zoom still did not come up with that feature of teleportation. Maybe it's a feature request for Ecamm. That would be awesome. If you guys come up with that one, let me tell you, your business will change forever. But anyways, go back to this. I had to figure out how I'm going to engage through a platform like Zoom. And so I had to change all my show to be interactive in different ways. Okay, so I took a list of all my show, everything I've been doing, and I started like eliminating. It's like, okay, so this one I physically need somebody to grab something, so out of the way. This one I need to let somebody examine. How can I let somebody examine in a different way? If I couldn't find the way, out. So it was basically elimination. And then it's like, okay, so what's left that I felt comfortable with, and then what can I add on new? Luckily, a lot of creative entertainers, magicians, started coming up with some ideas. So I took some ideas from here, some ideas from there, and I put something together. Am I proud of what I put together back then? No, I'm not. But honestly, I didn't care. I just had to put something together and start experimenting. So maybe if you are starting right now, I will tell you, just start experimenting. All right. So the first thing I did was, when it was still in March. Okay, it was more toward the like 2 weeks after I disembarked the cruise. I put and on my Instagram, I was like, hey, whoever wants a free show on Zoom, for your team, to interact with your team, to engage with them, I'm willing to do it for you for free. So I got a guy who contacted me, a barber. Yeah, a barber contacted me for a show. It was funny for me, anyways. And he had two barber shops. Obviously, they were closed down, and he had to figure it out with his team. So I said, let's do something fun with them. And I said, yeah, for sure, let's do it. And we jumped on Zoom with I think it was like 12 or 15 people, and I did my first Zoom show. Let me show you my setup for my first Zoom show back in March 2020. Let's see, there you have it. Oh, I was April 1st, 2020. So there you have it. This this was, I'm not sure if it was my first or my second one. Look at the table first of all. Okay, it's like it was a foldable table I had out there, and I had to do it straight on Zoom. I didn't have Ecamm back then. Um, a laptop from 2013. That's a MacBook Air from 2013. I was using the built-in camera, and if you see on the table, I have a wireless uh, microphone. Luckily, that's a good microphone, professional microphone that I had from my in-person shows. I connected it to the computer directly, and that's all. I mean, my computer, which I was connected by through Wi-Fi, not even through a cable. Now I was like, what am I doing? What I was doing there? And the camera that you see, the video camera you see, I was recording myself with that video camera just to see how bad I suck later on. And I wasn't even, I think, recording on Zoom. It was a free account. I don't even remember really. I mean, it's a little foggy. But the next step was using that video camera, which I couldn't even get um, an adapter back then because everything was sold out. You know, the 4K Elgato HDMI to USB was like $400. I'm not gonna get it for $400. So I got the cheap Chinese for $15, and I had to do with that for a few months. It was complicated. So that was my second camera, all right, and then a few. Oh, by the way, look at the flip flops there. Very proud of the flip flops, I have to say. I still use flip flops in every single performance, and I will continue doing so. Pants over there was extra. I don't. Yes, I no pants. I mean, shorts. Don't go there. It's not that kind of a show. But yeah, I'm doing it from home, so that's part of the perks of doing this way. Uh, since then, I had to change, and I had to go into expenses after that. So that was my first show, and but that's my YouTube channel. You don't have to follow you. You can follow me, but there wasn't was I was it wasn't supposed to be there. So let me remove it. There you are. Okay, but you can follow me, and we'll talk about YouTube later. Anyways, so that was my first show. Actually, people really enjoyed it. I got really good comments. I thought it was kind of horrible. I was still trying to figure out how to interact with that, and it was pretty complicated. You know, the muting, unmuting, it was all straight on Zoom. My sound was okay because I was using that microphone. Video was horrible. I also need to use the table, so I didn't have an overhead camera, so I had to like lean the laptop down so people can see what I'm doing. So that was, it was very difficult, but it worked. It worked. They were happy. Uh, and I said, okay, there is something here. Let's continue exploring. And I continued, and I've done another one and another one. And then I came across, I watched a lot of, by the way, my learning curve was I watched a lot of YouTube videos. So Luria and Adrian, they were my first teachers. But I was watching everything about sound and what else I need. So I was, every time I was walking my dog, I was with my phone like this, watching and learning something new. That was the way for me to study. And it was very weird. I had to, and if you are an entertainer or if you used to be on stages, it's very weird. You know, there's no live audience, no applauses. So imagine I finished doing my a number or a trick, something, and it's like quiet. You know, there's no shaking hands after the show. Normally, I would, after the show, I would stand outside the theater and shake hands, and there was that energy. Or maybe at the end of the show, I would get a standing ovation. I mean, that this is wow. I mean, that energy, the sweat and all that. This is something that I love. I love about in-person shows. And now there's nothing like that. It's like this is weird. Like I finish the show and it's like I click a button, end session, end meeting, and it's me in an empty room, quiet, weird. So that for me was like the biggest adjustment, because I felt that whatever I do, I suck. I mean, because there was no reaction. Only after I called the client, they tell me, no, it was great. Everybody gave great reaction. So I had to learn how to interact differently. I have to learn that really it's not that I'm bad. It's just that I have to interact differently. So maybe using the chat was one of the things. Unmuting people, unmuting everybody, which was also a big mistake, especially if it's a large meeting. But when it's a small meeting, it worked. So, and translating all the magic in a way that will work. Then I had obviously all the learning curve of the equipment of streaming. What's the right equipment? What's the right setup? And I had to buy a lot of stuff when I had no income. So that was kind of scary, and so I was trying not to make a lot of mistakes. Obviously, I did, but that's also part of how you learn. And also the companies, they were still trying to figure out, uh, because some of them were like planning on doing, and we are still in April, by the way, we are still in April 2020. Some of them were still trying to figure out, for events that were in October, if it's gonna happen. Then they started canceling immediately, so they didn't know if they're gonna go virtual or just cancel. Most of them just cancel because they still did not believe in virtual. They still did not understand them themselves. I mean, we're going to do our annual meeting on Zoom. We're going to do our conference. How I'm going to do it? How the exhibitors are going to exhibit the product? How we're going to network? How we're going to bring an incredible speaker? How our employees are going to work from home. I mean, we had to figure all this out. Companies had to figure all this out. And when August came along, they realized that this is going to take a while. They're not coming back to in person anytime soon. And they realized, okay, we have to continue engaging with our team. We have to continue engaging with our clients. We have to continue being relevant. So we cannot spend on ads. We need to continue creating events and somehow interact with our team, audience, and so on, clients. So they started, okay, let's start booking virtual stuff, which for me was an amazing opportunity, because those that already knew me from the in-person, I already had my marketing material ready to go. I jumped on it really fast, and I started sending out newsletters back in April. Newsletter to all the event planners, like, hey, I'll do 15 minutes before your meeting. I started with that. I'll do team building events, and I started then getting traction more and more, and companies like started to interact with me. And back in April, by the way, that's when I found Ecamm, and I started learning Ecamm, implementing it into my show. It was a big change. I got myself a new computer, which was needed, started buying equipment as mentioned, and then in September I created a happy hour show, which is still running, and I done it mostly. It was a product of love. It was a free show, and I did it mostly for the 55 plus communities. These are big country clubs, communities. There's a lot of them in Florida. I used to perform for them as well. So I said, okay, they really the 55 and older, most of them are like in the 60s, and so they are really in lockdown. They are scared, and these are people that were very used to going to watch shows live and to interact between them, in their clubhouse, and there was no more clubhouse for them. So, and I mean clubhouse, the real clubhouse, not the app. So I said, okay, let's create a show, a fun show for them. I will be able to practice myself on camera, which I really needed to get that going. And it's going to be a win-win situation. I called an entertainer, a friend of mine that I met on the cruise lines. He's a pianist. He lives in Las Vegas. And I say, hey, I mean, you're not doing anything. Why don't you be my co-host? You play the piano. I'll do some magic, and then every week we would bring also a guest entertainer, can be a comedian or a singer or anything else, and it was a variety show, and we also played a game there, and it worked. People loved it, and I used Ecamm for that. Back then I brought him through Skype. It was the Ecamm still didn't have the interview feature, and it was great. I learned so much. It was the best learning curve I could have. I learned how to speak to the camera, uh, because remember, I'm coming from a big stage where for me it was always like this, looking up to the side, trying to create eye contact with everybody. But now creating eye contact suddenly is through a pinhole. So it's more like this or like this, and trying not to do this or look at the monitors, which I still do, by the way, because sometimes I have to. But all this is a big learning curve. So the happy hours really worked. It was great. It gave me also some exposure. People loved it. We're still doing it now. We don't do it every week. We do it every 2 weeks, and we already got a live audience going. Now I'm streaming it live on Zoom and on YouTube. So when I'm recording this, 35 episodes, 35 episodes already. So that's pretty good. And the pianist is still with me. He loves doing it. So and now after been doing this for already a year and a half, there's a lot of advantages. So I don't have to travel. So that's a good part. I don't have to be far away from my family. I get to really enjoy my family. This past year and a half, I really reconnected with my daughter, and now my newborn as well. I really get to spend that time. It's super fun. I can do more than one show a day if I need to. I wish I would have a lot of opportunities, but you know what? During December 2020, I had some days that I had more than one show. I can perform internationally without leaving home, which is basically the same as no travel. But basically now, a company can, an international company can have their team anywhere in Asia, any country, doesn't matter, any continent, and I get to interact with people from all over the world. And as mentioned before, one of the things that I love the most is I get to do my shows in flip-flops with no pants. Yeah. And the moment I'm done with the show, I'm already here. I'm already home. Dinner. Uh, I have great neighbors. We do a lot of barbecues outside. So I click and I'm like, oh, there's a barbecue waiting for me. So it is an opportunity. So if you are an entertainer, if you are somebody that used to engage on stages, there is a big opportunity here, uh, because people need this live interaction. Okay. So again, I started booking all the shows in August, and by the way, by December was my busiest, because December is normally, for me and for all the entertainers, is the holiday parties. So every company normally does a holiday party for their employees. December was the busiest December I ever had in my life, and 2020 was a record, ended up being a record year for me. So started in, it was great until March. From March until October, it was a lot of anxiety and no income. And then after that, made up for everything plus. So I had the best year yet. And this year, already up to today, I'm already up to 2020. So I already made this year almost as much as I did all last year. So I'm going to break the record, and I'm very excited about that. So what's next for me? So I'm planning to continue doing both in person and virtual. Right now, the in person was starting to happen, but then Delta fucked it up. So basically, those that were planning, and there are still, I still have on the books a few kind of planned for October, but they still uh, hesitating. They're still not sure if it's going to happen, and probably most of them won't. Um, so it is a great opportunity because once you learn how to do this and to interact, you can do both. You can do in person, you can do virtually, okay? And now I'm experimenting. I started experimenting with hybrid. What does hybrid mean? We are actually inventing the hybrid right now. So I don't think that anybody really has the exact definition of hybrid entertainment. The way I see hybrid is being able to engage with people from stage in person and at the same time broadcast it in a way that it's fun and interactive for them too. Otherwise, it's just like watching Netflix or something else or something on TV. And another way for hybrid, which I got to experiment with, is me being in my studio here and then having a group of people in one room, like a theater style, watching on a screen. So, and the way I did it, by the way, so we had one computer connected to a projector on Zoom, and then we had, you know, these selfie iPads that you use for events that they use for selfies with a ring light. So we put one of those in the event on the side. So everybody would see me on the big screen, and there was a camera also pointing at the audience. So on the gallery view, I could see my audience, and they could see me on the big screen. So then when I wanted to call somebody and bring them on the virtual stage, because that's what I do with Ecamm, by the way, I bring people from Zoom and they appear picture in picture with me, side by side, different ways. So what I did is I would call somebody, and I was able to say, hey, you in the second row with the red shirt. So that person would say, yes, you. Go ahead and go to the selfie stand. So they would walk there, and the selfie stand was another user on Zoom. So basically, I would have the selfie on Zoom and the main camera that shows the whole audience. Are you following me? So then the selfie, okay, I could bring the selfie with me on screen, and that way bring one specific person and have a volunteer with me, okay, to interact with, to do the magic with. And that worked perfectly because they were sitting in front of a big screen. They saw their friend on the big screen with me, picture in picture, all right, and there was an interaction. So that's another way that you can use hybrid and be anywhere in the world and connect with people. And also, and by the way, and I'm planning uh, of implementing Ecamm on my live shows on stage. You see, before I was doing this, I was controlling my music from stage, and sometimes I would even control like what's happening on the LED screen behind me. And I had like a hidden remote in my pocket, and I had I had an iPad with a special program app that controls my music, and automatically fades, automatically does everything. So all I had to do is just click a button in my pocket, and it would cue the next song according to that moment. And I used to control that myself. I didn't, because I was traveling by myself, and I couldn't train a person for every theater, every place I go. So that was in my control. I wasn't trusting anybody on that. So now I'm planning on using Ecamm to control all that, also with a remote, by the way. You can use Ecamm. I can be standing back and use it. And now it's a great opportunity because with Ecamm, I can create scenes. The scene can have a track of music, can have a photo that can be projected. If you go to, I'm not going to go into the technical part, but basically in the output video, you can output to another monitor, which would be the screen on my stage. And then I can also, when I click the button, it goes to the next scene, and the next scene maybe has a camera, and I can come close to the camera and do something close up, which is projected on the big screen. So there are new opportunities using Ecamm or whatever you want to use, but what I'm saying is that now we are inventing, we are creating the next generation of live entertainment. And this is very, very exciting for me. And now, another thing I'm doing is I'm coaching right now. I'm coaching because I've done over 100 presentations and over 100 shows in the past year and so. And normally these are business, corporate. And normally they have a presentation before me or after me. It's somebody is sharing the screen with a PowerPoint. And I realize watching so many of them that 99% of them, what's that word? Suck. They really suck at presenting online. So boring. Okay? A lot of professionals really have no idea how to create an engaging presentation. I know they don't know magic, but it's fine. You can still be a good presenter. You can still do a great presentation on PowerPoint and be interesting. And there is something called Zoom fatigue, and it's happening. And I don't know if it happens to you, but when you're on a Zoom meeting and somebody says, "Oh, let me share a screen," everybody goes, "Oh." and let me tell you, when you're on a platform like Zoom, people are at home. They are, they have other things happening around them. They playing a game. They don't really pay attention. So you really have to be engaging, so people really, so you have their attention. Okay. So there are different ways you have to interact, and a lot of people, a lot of professionals that used to do PowerPoint presentations in person really could not translate it to platforms like Zoom or Team. So right now, I'm finishing an online course that teaches professionals, entrepreneurs, teachers, how to create engaging presentations. What are the tools that you need? And not only what are the tools, it's how to really engage. Because maybe instead of using PowerPoint, maybe you can just talk like I'm doing right now, or maybe you can bring the slide with you, because you are the product at the end of the day. You need to sell yourself. The presentation is just an aid, an extra tool, but you cannot abuse that tool. So I'm coaching sales teams, entrepreneurs right now on how to create engaging presentations, so I'm finishing this online course, and I'm doing some private one-on-one coaching as well on that. So I'm very, very excited about the opportunities. Please reach out. I'm really happy to connect and schedule a one-to-one with you. See if I can help you. Learn from you. Hey, I learned from so many in this community. Ecamm it's not only a program that enables you to do these amazing things and interact with people, but it's also a great community where there's so many fun people that are willing to give their knowledge And I'm in my YouTube channel, which right now, there you go, not maybe it's a good time to put it on my YouTube channel. I'm also putting content out there of things that I learned with Ecamm and Zoom, how to better engage, things that worked for me, things that didn't work for me. So go ahead, check it out. And by the way, I've been trying really hard to change the name of my YouTube channel to just Alan Chamo, but Alan Chamo is my personal YouTube channel and it's not allowing me to do it, and I'm going nuts. I tried everything. So if you can help me figure this out, please reach out. I would really, really appreciate it. Okay. So that's me. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them right now. I don't know how much time we have left on a Q&A. You can put it in the chat or just come on and let's talk. Let's do it right now. So thank you very much for staying with me here. Uh, Hopefully I brought some value to you. You can find me on Instagram or Facebook. On Instagram, it's just my name, Alan Chamo. And you can Google me. I have my website, alanchamo.com. So thank you again for tuning in, and let's continue interacting.